What's going on, guys? Dottz here, and today I'm going to be bringing you all my New World PvP leveling build that is a Rapier and Fire Staff combination. I did make a video on this last week if you do want to check it out, linked in the description below, that showed my week 2 progress, but this is a week 3 update for my character, showing you guys, how far I've made it, what I'm currently using, and as well as what I'm projecting to use, because I've definitely made some changes to the setup since I made the video last week, and I have also confirmed some of the decisions I have made, basically knowing that this is definitely the right choice. And I'm going to start off by talking about the armor weight. I think that's one of the first things I want to talk about was the equipment load. So I've been experimenting with both light, medium, and heavy, or I guess all three, not both. I've been experimenting with all 3 armor weights just to really kind of see what I like and get a feel from them. And honestly, after trying all 3, it has done nothing but confirm my desire to wear medium armor for this setup. I do personally feel that the medium armor weight is kind of just the best cross between everything. It is literally the medium setting for everything, and I like it for that reason. You get a decent dodge, a decent bonus of damage and healing, a decent increase to your crowd control. You get the best of both light and heavy armor, and it's just, in my opinion, my favorite armor weight, at least for it. I think heavy armor has its place in certain sword and shield builds, as well as maybe a great axe and hatchet build where you have so much mobility and chase specifically locked, through your kit. While on the other hand, light armor, I know, the Fire Staff Rapier combo is already very mobile with Burnout and with Fletch, but personally, while light was great, of course, for the increased damage, dealt a lot of damage, you are so reliant on your dodge roll to avoid damage, and I personally always like playing with a little bit more tankiness and not playing full glass cannon, and light was just a little bit too squishy for me, and so for that reason, I just thought medium was the better choice. And also having the extra crouch control debuffs applying lasting 10% longer is good now that I am running a CC on my Rapier bar, so I have found that to be very helpful. In terms of the gear that I'm actually wearing, basically the way that I have my gear set up, I think, is one of, I believe it's 2 or 3 optimal weight distributions to make sure you don't cross over into heavy, but also get the maximum amount of armor. So that is a medium helmet, a heavy chest, medium gloves, light legs, and heavy boots. And then in terms of the bonuses that I'm going for, I basically look for anything that has constitution and intelligence on it. I mean, this has focus on it, which is kind of a big sad, but I basically try to do any combination of constitution and intelligence. Constitution obviously for the health, and intelligence is going to give me damage from both my Fire Staff and for my Rapier. Because for those of you who do not know, I have been getting asked about this a bit, the Rapier does have secondary scaling with intelligence. It does scale with it. Its main stat is Dex, but its second stat is intelligence. So it will still scale with intelligence. Granted, it obviously won't scale as well as it does with Dex, but you can increase that scaling capability by adding an intellect gem to it. Now, because this is a Rapier Fire Staff build, I personally recommend not using a fire gem, going for a different element just to kind of mix up your damage types. But the good thing about this is that this converts 30% of my damage into an intelligence type of damage. And so 30% of the Rapier's damage is scaling primarily with intelligence, and then 70% is scaling secondarily with intelligence, if that makes sense. But basically, it does make, honestly, a very good amount of damage. I think it's very good, and I personally like this combo a lot. I think it works really well to up the Rapier's damage for that intelligence scaling. And then for armor gems right now, I'm primarily using I believe the Onyx gems for physical damage absorption. Personally, at the moment, as I'm leveling, the builds that give me the most problems tend to be physical damage builds. And so for that reason, I'm going for more physical damage reduction out of the gems in my gear. But personally, I recommend just some sort of damage reduction gem out of your gear. I find those to be the best currently. And then on my Fire Staff, I am using currently an Execute gem, so you get 12% increased damage against targets with less than 30% health. Still kind of experimenting with my Fire Staff gems at the moment. You don't really want to use any intelligence gems because they won't really do anything here, in my opinion. So I've been trying to experiment with gems that kind of give different bonuses. So currently, this is what I'm using. My necklace, I currently have the Graveguard Seal, which is a ton of constitution. I believe this came from Starstone, so I do have this from there. And then I also do have the Weaver's Knot, which does come from, I believe, questing in Weaver's Fen. And so you are able to get a ton of constitution from this as well. And so these are some really good jewelry pieces that you can pick up while you are leveling. In terms of consumables that I would recommend, I personally am using 4 types of consumables. I recommend using a health potion, a regeneration potion, because the regeneration potion is basically a hot for both your health and your mana, and it does not share cooldown with the health regen potion, so it's really, really good to have. You also want to use a mana elixir. I typically use a mana elixir when I am just out in the world, because I have now learned that those CC immunity potions that I was discussing in my last video, I believe those are war specific, so maybe in wars I would use those, but for just running around in the world, because I really don't have any other options at this point, I just use a mana elixir. Obviously, if you're doing, you know, breaches and stuff, you can use the corruption potions, but I just use 1 health, 1 regen, 1 mana, kind of covers all my resources. And then for food, I use some sort of recovery food that gives me health recovery. So 1% of my health every 2.5 seconds. But the good thing about the food that's like this is that if you see this, you recover 100 health per second for 20 seconds, and this recovery stops if damage is taken. So you can actually eat mid-combat, and if you just run around a lot, make yourself really difficult to hit, you're going to make it so that you're actually getting the regeneration from that light meal over time, and you won't be taking, you know, you'll be getting a lot of healing, if you're assuming you're able to bob and weave and keep people off of you from, you know, from dealing damage to stop that healing. I do actually have some earrings in my bag. I'm probably going to use this one, the Swashbuckler's earring. I believe I also did get this from a quest. As you can see, rewarded for completing the quest, Pirate Island. Again, another big bonus to Constitution. So we're getting a lot of Constitution from our jewelry, which is going to help make us fairly tanky. Now, in terms of our stats, which we took a look at before, at the moment, I have a lot of Constitution coming from my gear. I've only actually committed 5 additional points to Constitution for a total of 10. And otherwise, I've just been getting a lot of Constitution from my gear. A little bit more than I would like at the moment, because my goal right now is to get my intelligence up to 200. Because of that passive 10 mana after a dodge, you are able to dodge quite a bit in medium armor. You do get 3 dodges per full stamina bar, and so because of that, you're able to get quite a bit of additional mana from just dodging around, which will help your sustain a ton. So, you know, if you're, you know, looking at your gear and stuff, I would try to maybe go a little bit more into intelligence than I am at the moment. Of course, it's really nice to be this tanky, but if I was at 200 intelligence, I'd have a bit more damage and a little bit more sustain. So that's currently something I'm working on shifting my stats towards. Now, the big thing I want to discuss is actually the weapons. The weapons have changed quite a bit from my previous iterations, or previous iteration of this build. So I was going for more of a dot focus build on my previous setup and doing dots from the fire staff and dots for the rapier. But I have learned from playing that build that I actually thought the rapier bleed Tondo for PvP did feel very underwhelming. You know, and the fire staff already puts up so many applications of burning as you get more passives. And so I felt like I had enough dots already from the fire staff that I really didn't feel like I needed the bleed from Tondo. And it felt very underwhelming to me. And so I instead shifted to getting a crowd control with Riposte. And man, let me tell you, I've been absolutely enjoying this skill. It has been super fun. So if you don't know what it does, you enter a defensive stance for 1 second. And if struck during this ability, counter the attack, stunning them briefly for 1.5 seconds. And then you're briefly invulnerable upon a successful riposte. And then I went for all of the perks in this. Insult to injury. So if you actually trigger the riposte, you're uninterruptible for 3 seconds. Priority, reducing the cooldown of other rapier abilities by 20% when landing a riposte. A lot of cooldown reduction. Cooldown reduction is extremely important in this game, and so I've been trying to go for that on, excuse me, on all of my weapons. And then finally, lasting consequence to increase that stun to 2 seconds to make it more potent. I also I'm still using Evade. Evade, in my opinion, is one of the best skills that the Rapier has. It is fantastic. You perform a small, reliable sidestep in your current movement direction that cancels any activity and provides a momentary invulnerability. So it is an iframe. And any light attacks made during Evade are performed exceptionally fast. So you're able to get off a lot of light attacks and a lot of damage while actively evading. And I decided to, instead of grabbing other passives, I just went full-blown down a lot of these skills. So gain 20 stamina immediately on use. You're going to be able to use Evade constantly, and so this is going to be a really good source of stamina sustain. I also went for Allegro to give myself 20% movement speed on use. Again, you're going to see as we get further down the passives, constantly using Evade will mean all these passives are constantly up. Also do have Adagio, I believe. Evading forward towards your opponent will give you 15% increased damage on your next light attack. Ends after 1 hit or after 1 second. So basically, you're going to want to evade forward and then immediately hit that light attack. And now the big passive of the Evade line and what makes it so important is Crescendo. Individual successful light attacks reduce the cooldown of this ability by 30% each. And so basically, because Evade makes your light attacks happen so rapidly. You are able to just evade light attacks, evade light attacks, evade light attacks. It is crazy how fast and how often you can get that evade off, which means that you're constantly getting iframes, means you're constantly moving and getting movement speed. You are constantly gaining stamina, and you're attacking fast, which means you have a lot of damage. And then if you evade forward, you get 15% damage on the first light attack. It's just, it all works super, super, super well together. And because of this talent crescendo is why I decided to go really deep into evade very early on. I also am running Fletch. Fletch will be a really good gap closer or a kiting tool that deals a lot of damage when you strike your target. And I also, because this thing has really good talents too, I'm currently trying to invest in those as well. You have Quick Lunge. Killing with this ability will reduce its cooldown by 80%. Not the, maybe the best, in general for the passive, but it's still pretty good if you can get a killing blow with this. You can get another one really, really fast. We also do have Backside. After performing a Fletch, your next critical strike attack will have its damage increased by 15 seconds, which is very, very good. But then Interruption is the talent I'm looking forward to the most. Pressing light attack at any time during Fletch will stop and perform a static continuation attack, dealing 115% damage. So you're not only able to get the 145% from Fletch, you get another 115 from Interruption. So you're able to deal quite a bit of burst damage with a gap closer, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, our other passive that we have at the moment is on Guard. I did go for this early on because I think it's really strong. You deal 10% more damage when your target has greater than 50% health. Just helps you keep your opponents a little bit lower on HP. And in terms of other passives that I'm projecting to use at the moment, I'm also looking at Refreshing Strikes to reduce all cooldowns by 1% on any hit. I feel like that's going to combo really well with being able to constantly evade and get really fast light attacks. So I'll be able to constantly be reducing my cooldowns through Refreshing Strikes. I also do plan on going with Controlled Breathing, plus for 3 stamina on any hit. Again, this is really good for the exact same reasons that I just stated for Refreshing Strikes. Lots of hits, lots of stamina, good sustain. Also do want to go with Red Curtains to critical strikes will reduce all cooldowns by 5%. Again, more cooldown reduction, always a good thing to have. And then finally, I'm going to go with Swiftness. Swiftness will give you 3% haste for 4 seconds on any hit, can stack up to 5 times. Again, because we are hitting very, very rapidly, all these things that are on hit are really useful to us because we're constantly evading, constantly getting those hits up. And so because of that, we're able to stack up passives like this very easily. Now, going into our Fire Staff. Fire Staff has changed quite a bit for me as well. After testing some things out, my Fire Staff passives have changed pretty dramatically, and my actives, and I have been liking the setup way more than my previous setup. And the first thing you're going to notice is a skill change. I moved from Fireball to Pillar of Fire. So Pillar of Fire is a targeted spell that deals 134% rapid damage and costs 15 mana. Now, if you compare, and has a 10-second cooldown, if you compare that to Fireball, Fireball has a longer cooldown for 15 seconds, only deals 140% weapon damage versus the 134, so only 6% more damage, and it costs 25 mana. And so it is way less like you have the cooldown is longer and it costs more. And I feel like for the slight damage increase that it deals only 6% more, I don't really know if I find it all that worth it, especially because when you're PvPing, people really aren't going to be standing in that burning field. They're just going to walk out of it. And so, maybe this would be better for something like a Ice Gauntlet and Fire Staff build where you're going to keep people frozen and then they can sit in the burning field. But I feel like for a build like this, Pillar of Fire just felt a little bit better to me, especially when you also consider there's one big reason too. This is also really good. Pillar of Fire deals 40% more damage to foes at full health. You can open up with Pillar of Fire, which is extremely helpful. But the main reason I like Pillar is this passive. Arson's Advantage. Gain 10% of your max mana per enemy hit by Pillar of Fire. So if you only hit one enemy with Pillar, it costs 5 mana. If you hit 2, you are gaining 5 mana. And then obviously more will add 10 each time. If you compare that to something like Fireball, it costs 25 mana, and its passive of Catch, if you deal a direct hit, you gain 10% mana. That is 10 mana. And so you end up still losing 15 mana, and that's if you hit someone directly in the chest with Fireball. And I don't know, at least for me, sometimes I felt like I was hitting targets and it wasn't counting it, and it just felt really wonky. And so to me, at least, Pillar of Fire felt way more reliable as a spell for its passives compared to Fireball, and my mana efficiency went through the roof using this. So I definitely recommend giving this skill a try if you haven't. I personally felt it really clunky when I started using it, just because I feel like ground AoEs can sometimes be a bit difficult in this game. But the more I practice it, the more I used it, the more I really started to like it. The range is also super long. It's a very good skill, and I do recommend giving it a shot. We are also still using Incinerate. This causes a fire explosion, dealing 130% weapon damage and pushing enemies back 3 meters, and catching enemies on fire, dealing 3% weapon damage each second for 6 seconds. Now, I got asked about this a bunch of times in my stream. People were saying, like, oh, Dottz, I don't really think Incinerate is that good. Like, why do you use it? You know, I don't really see why it's very good. The thing with Incinerate and the thing with the Fire Staff is that the Fire Staff scales really hard the more passives it gets. As you start using the Fire Staff, it's going to, in my opinion, in the beginning, feel extremely weak. But as you add passives to it, the power starts to come through. And Incinerate is a perfect example of that. So let's look at all the passives that it has. You have Scorched. Each hit of Incinerate will cause an additional stack of burning. And so right off the bat, you're going to get 2 stacks of burning whenever you hit someone with Incinerate. Now, whenever you get Cauterized Wounds, this is another good one too, 20% of any damage you deal is granted to you as health, which is fantastic. So if you're hitting more people with this and dealing more damage, you're getting more HP back. But the granddaddy passive of them all is this one, Flame Out. Incinerate hits twice. So you're getting that 130% weapon damage dealt twice. But because each hit of Incinerate gives 2 stacks of burning now, you're getting 4 stacks of burning. So you're dealing, 2 instances of 130% damage. You are getting 4 stacks of burning and then healing yourself for 20% of that damage done. It's very, very good when you start to stack up those passives. And plus you also get that knockback too. So personally, I find this to be extremely good. And then finally, I do have Burnout. Again, another gap closer slash kiting ability, dealing 129% weapon damage on hit, and then also causing burn that deals 10% weapon damage over 8 seconds. Just a fantastic skill. It's great to close the gap, great to escape, helps keep you mobile. And it is something that I like a lot. In terms of passives that I have at the moment, I am using Pyromania. While holding a Fire Staff and below 50% max health, your damage is increased by 20%. This passive is fantastic. Let it burn. Whenever burn deals damage, you gain Fortify for 2 seconds. There's a 10% damage reduction. And the good thing about this build is I've heavily prioritized burning application to basically with the goal of having Fortify up nearly 100% of the time. And then I do also run Watch It Burn. Light attacks cause the enemy to catch fire, dealing 3% weapon damage every second for 6 seconds. So you can stack up burning really high and deal quite a considerable amount of damage every second. So really like this passive for that reason. I've also had this really get me secure me some kills if someone's trying to kite and run away. If you actually hit them with a light attack, that constant ticking dot on them will prevent them from being able to eat while they run, because they will be taking damage. So I do find that to be very useful. Now on the Fire Mage side of things right now, I did talk about this in my last video, and I'll mention it now. I talked about potentially using Reheat for my mana regeneration. After 6 seconds without activating a fire ability, your mana regen is increased by 400%. And upon doing some research and looking into this, I really actually don't think it is that great of a passive, especially because it does not proc on your opposite weapon bar. So you would literally need to sit on your Fire Staff bar for 6 seconds, do nothing except for light or heavy attack, and then you'd get that mana regen. Or I swapped to, like I said, the more efficient Pillar of Fire to help me with my mana regen, but I also am using the heavy attack combo. And what I mean by that is you run 2 passives. Spell Focus. Heavy attacks restore 5% of your mana on hit. So at a base, heavy attacks cost 5% mana. This will restore 5% mana, therefore netting 0 mana, assuming that you land that hit. But if you also pair that with Flare, heavy attacks no longer consume any mana. You will be gaining 5 mana every single time you land a heavy attack. So I find this combo of passives to be very useful to help give me some extra mana regen while I am in combat. I also do run Spellslinger to give me 15% extra critical strike, and then also to combo well with my other heavy attack passives, I do run this Fiery Restoration to reduce those cooldowns by 10% on hit. Now, in terms of some other passives that I do plan on running, Prophet of a Fire God. While holding a Fire Staff, your critical strike damage is increased by 20%. I think this combos really well with Spellslinger, which gives us that extra crit chance. This will give us extra crit damage. And then the good thing is that we'll also be going for Singe. Whenever you get a critical hit with a Fire Staff, again, cause burning, dealing 3% weapon damage each second for 6 seconds. Again, just helping for us to play into that burning application type of strategy. I also obviously do plan on getting all of the passives underneath Incinerate, and I do plan on getting all of the passives underneath Burnout. For all in, each Fire Staff cooldowns are reduced by 5% for each foe hit by Burnout, and then Heated Up. Burnout goes 50% further. So those are currently my plans for the staff. But with that being said, guys, I am pretty sure that is it for me. That covers my updated character progression and my new version of the Rapier Fire Staff build. And let me tell you, the build's been progressing really nice, and I'm happy with the changes that I made. The more I've been playing, the more experience I've been getting, being able to start seeing what I like about certain things, what I don't like about certain things, and I feel like the build is progressing along really, really well, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it feels like and how it plays once I actually have all of these passives. And I'm still in the process of getting clips from stream. As you can see, I am flagged, so as I do get more clips and gameplay from stream, I will be sure to put a gameplay video together at some point showcasing this build in action. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this. If you did, I appreciate it if you left a like on it. Any questions about the build, feel free to leave a comment below. And guys, for more New World content, be sure to hit that sub button as well as hit the bell to keep those notifications on. And if you do want to watch me live over on Twitch, I do stream Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern US time, as well as Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern US time. So be sure to come stop by, say hello, drop a follow, and hang out in the stream. Anyway, guys, I do appreciate you stopping by again, spending some time of your day here with me today. As always, I'm Dottz Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next video.